All right, welcome back, and thank you again, Sharice and Riyadh, for that inspiring morning keynote. For those of you just joining us, if you missed the earlier keynote, it will be available on demand in the keynotes and user talks area. So if you have a chance later today and you want to go back and watch it, you can. We're now going to switch focus to our leadership keynotes, kicking off with our CEO, Max Lebowski, followed by our Chief Product Officer, David Lakatosh, and our Chief Business Officer, Luke Winston. They will walk you through Formlabs' mission and vision, a product update, and hand out our Impact Award. So without further ado, let me hand it off to Max.
Formlabs' mission is to expand access to digital fabrication so anyone can make anything. And that's why the User Summit is really so rewarding to me personally and to all of us at Formlabs. It's a chance to see the impact that we're making on the world. It's a chance to see all of the amazing work that all of you are doing, all the ways that you're using our printers to develop better products and to treat patients and to make the world a better place. And it's also really valuable to us at Formlabs because it's a chance to get feedback directly from all of you, to hear about what we can do to make the products better. This year, the User Summit, it's a bit different than the last. We've been doing it for a few years now, but this year we're doing it during a global pandemic, and that means we can't do it in person. For me personally, that's disappointing because I love to walk around and see the stuff you're working on and meet you all in person. But on the other hand, we got to, because we were doing the User Summit virtually, we got to do it at an even bigger scale. So we've got more than 3,000 attendees registered from more than 90 countries. We've got 200 partners present, so it's really a pretty big scale. And hopefully next year we'll get to do the best of both worlds, do User Summit again in person, and do this virtual User Summit so we can expand access to the User Summit. So I want to talk more about the pandemic and the impact it's had on our business and what we've been doing to adapt. So going back to the beginning of 2020, we were really kind of hit with a wave of different issues the pandemic was causing. First, we had supply chain disruptions in Asia. Our operations team was rapidly adapting. We managed to avoid most stockouts. And then, of course, the pandemic became truly global, and we saw impacts basically across the whole world. You can see here some of the charts where we're monitoring printer usage in different countries, and the impacts were different in different places, but of course it's completely global impact. So by the beginning of March, we were trying to figure out what do we have to do to adapt. There's going to be a big global recession. What are we doing to keep the company in a good place financially? And then there were lockdowns in many of the countries we work in, so how are we going to keep working? And it was a really stressful period. And while we were just trying to deal with all that internally, though, we started to see some of the opportunity to actually not just survive, but fight back. And so that's where some of these COVID-19 response projects come in, where our users started to reach out to us and say, hey, there's a shortage of different, of some types of PPE or different things like that, and we think we can make them with 3D printing. And we just started to do everything we could to support that. We were printing parts for people, we were providing kind of technical support, we were modifying our printer software and print processes to print these parts better. And we worked on respirators and ventilator adapter parts. But the really big opportunity came with the nasopharyngeal swab shortage. So these are something I think most of us had never heard about before, special type of Q-tip that's used to, you stick it in your nose and collect a sample to test for different types of pathogens, and this is what was being used primarily for COVID testing. Some of our customers at USF, University of South Florida, and Northwell Health, they reached out to us and said, hey, we think we can actually print these swabs and we can fight this shortage. So I want to show you a little video telling you a bit of that story.
hospitals came to embrace us and start using us over the last couple of years, and those same hospitals started calling us, asking how we could support them.
We are Formlabs, and we believe it's during challenging moments like the one we're all going through right now that human ingenuity and the spirit of collaboration find their most fertile ground, allowing all of us, as one people, to work together to push through, push forward, and thrive.
Some companies are already making face shields, test swabs, and medical gowns. Formlabs in Somerville is 3D printing diagnostic swabs.
And there's a company called Formlabs, and I found out yesterday they're capable of producing 1 million swabs a week with these 3D printers.
Ohio State then started working with 3D manufacturing company Formlabs in Toledo. Very soon, the first order of 15,000 3D printed swabs for COVID-19 test kits will be delivered to be shared in partnership with our Department of Health, allowing more people to be tested.
That's why we would like to thank our thousands of users, partners, and friends for the incredible hard work, dedication, and personal sacrifices that have been and will continue to be made, helping make the world a healthier and safer place in the fight against this global pandemic.
So, over a period of just 3 or 4 weeks, we went with our customers. We went from first sort of concept, the first printed parts, through testing and to clinical usage of a medical device. And for any of you who have been involved in medical device development, that is unprecedented. Normally, this is a process that takes many months or years. But through hard work of a lot of people at Formlabs and many users all across the world, some were printing it, some were involved in clinical testing, some were doing mechanical testing. We quickly collaborated to figure this out and figure out how to make swabs that actually work, that perform as well or better than conventional swabs. And fast forward to today, between us and our customers, we've produced tens of millions of these. And that means we've actually made a real impact here, because that's kind of the scale that testing is happening at in the world. So I think this is just an unbelievable opportunity to give back with our technology. It's also been really a great opportunity to help some of our customers adapt as well. So this is Rowe Dental Laboratory in Ohio, and the dental industry was hit really hard during COVID. Dental practices in most countries were shut down entirely for several months, so these businesses were really struggling, and they also wanted to contribute to the fight. So we worked with Rowe Dental Lab to adapt their fleet of Form 3Bs and get it to print swabs. And they were able to print more than 1 million over that time. And that's just one example. We've got many sites all across the world that have been printing swabs, everywhere from Canada to Singapore and in between. And some of these sites are still in volume production today. So now I want to switch to talking about some of our products and where we're going. So we created the desktop stereolithography category when we started with the Form 1 in 2012, and we've been building on that with successive versions and expanding on that. And the end result is we've shipped more than 70,000 3D printers. That's more professional 3D printers than any other company out there, including some of our competitors that have been around for far longer than we have. And the latest addition to that lineup we've introduced over the last year or so, a couple of new machines. One is Form 3B, where we're improving our support for medical and dental applications. And that's been a big success, especially through some of this COVID response activities. And then Form 3L, which is a larger format SLA system, 5 times bigger build volume than Form 3, and allowing us to cover a lot of these large parts that weren't able to do with our products in the past. And typically, before we got started, parts like this would only come off of machines that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, whereas the 3L is around $10,000. So continuing on this trend of making the technology more accessible. This range of products has allowed us to cover a huge range of applications. So it's hard to even kind of quickly summarize this, but basically any large company that's making plastic parts is using our printers, and then countless smaller companies as well. It's across almost every industry. We've got engineering and product design customers, either making rockets like SpaceX or making consumer electronics products like Google. Got healthcare customers and research hospitals like the Mayo Clinic. And then we even have people in the movie and game industry, movie studios like Marvel. So there's an enormous range of applications. But I think the last big direction I want to talk about is we've been working increasingly to support end-use parts in many of these industries, and we think this is one of the big next frontiers for 3D printing. It's great to make a prototype or a jig or a fixture that can be really valuable, but there's even more impact if you can go directly to that end-use product. And of course, we're not the only ones trying to work on this in 3D printing, but I think we have a somewhat unique approach. So we kind of studied the history of computing, and we saw that in production computing, what goes on in data centers, large, central, expensive computers have been replaced by arrays of smaller systems. And this has leveraged economies of scale to get better cost. It's more redundant, more flexible, and easier to scale. And we're doing the same thing in 3D printing. And what you saw in some of those swab production farms and many of our other volume users is you see arrays of small printers instead of a few larger, more expensive systems. And this makes it easier to ramp up quickly, and it's more redundant, more flexible. So we think this is really important to driving 3D printing into high volume applications in the future. So that's kind of a little bit of long-term direction, but we are also steadily releasing new products every few months. And next, I'd like to hand it off to David Lakatosh, our Chief Product Officer, to go into a little bit more detail about some of what we've done recently. But first, I wanted to thank you all again for attending. I really hope you enjoy the conference and hope that it's valuable for you. And hopefully we get a chance to interact at some point. So thank you all.
Thanks, Max, and welcome one more time. I'm really excited to be here, and this is the third time we are doing a user summit here in the US, and we've done it several times in Europe and also different parts of Asia. And every time we have a user summit together, it gives me, my team, and the entire Formlabs crew a chance to learn more about how our machines are used, and it allows us to think more creatively about how to think about what's coming next. So I want to show you a few things that we're working on, but before I do, I want to show you a video that one of our partners made, and it was very inspiring for me.
Alan, this species of Veriformin's been extinct since the Cretaceous period. I mean, this thing is about this thing. What?
It's Form 3L.
You did. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
All right, I think you get the picture. I really want to thank our partner, Solid Print 3D, for making this video. It made everybody at Formlabs very happy. So yeah, Form 3L is shipping. And I really want to thank everyone who already ordered one of our machines. And hopefully after learning a little bit more, you will be intrigued by its capabilities. So wanted to give you a kind of a look behind what's going on. So here on the left, you can see our factory in China actually getting out the first dozen of printers of the line. This just happened a couple days ago. And I also wanted to make sure that everybody knows that, yes, we're working on post-processing solutions. This is a larger printer, and guess what? There aren't a lot of large printers and certainly not a lot of post-processing options. So we are still very interested in covering the entire experience from printing all the way to getting the final part. So these products are coming very soon. We're estimating Q2 of next year to be in the market. And as these printers are shipping out, we're really excited to see the way all of you are using it. So all the way from kind of props and model making to kind of dental applications, we already see a wide range of applications, and can't wait until we get more of these online. And hopefully, if you're interested, please get in touch with us, because we love to feature all of our customers in our marketing. And just to take a step back, you heard already from Max a little bit about how we're thinking about where we're going, but one more time for us, the keyword accessibility is really what's always in front of us when we're thinking about new products. For us, we're kind of living in this world in between two existing ones. One of them is the really large industrial printers that, hundreds of thousands of dollars, really hard to use, takes a lot of time until you get started with it, and some of the kind of more hobbyist-oriented machines aimed at kind of personal use and hobby. We are kind of in between these two and really thinking about how we can deliver that premium quality, but at a price point and an ease of use that anybody can use. So we got started with SLA almost 10 years ago, but there is a new product line on the horizon with a new technology that is SLS. And we chose SLS very deliberately because it really allows us to expand the range of materials and the range of applications we can support our customers with. So we are doing really the same thing to SLS that we have done to SLA. A lot of people don't know, but there are a very few number of SLS machines out there. There are only about 2,000 units that have been sold until now. We think that this is kind of silly. We need to deliver this. SLS is an extremely powerful technology. It wins when it comes to cost per part. It wins when it comes to material properties in plastics that you can really deliver a kind of end-use part with. And you don't need support structures. So there are a lot of reasons to use SLS and nylon PH12 and other materials in it. So we're moving the conversation again from a $250,000 price point, which is pretty much the kind of state-of-the-art closest to in accessibility to the Fuse 1, down to $16,500, which is really a game changer. And we've spent the last couple of years really refining every single part of the experience, from powder handling to how you change over from before and after a print. And we've been working also with beta customers like Tessie Plastics, Recon Tools, and Hyperterm. And a lot of these customers have helped us really deliver a premium product that is going to be really changing how you think about SLS. We benchmarked the cost per part, which we think is one of the most important kind of benchmarks of these printers, to a service bureau application and also to some of the competitor printers. And you can see the kind of numbers speak for themselves. If you want to use, most of you likely, if you're using SLS, you're using it through a service bureau. You're paying hundreds of dollars for a single part, and often you're waiting 2 to 4 weeks to get this part in. If you are privileged enough to have one of these more expensive competitor printers, you've paid probably $250,000 or somewhere around there, and you're still paying a premium for these parts. But with Fuse 1, you're able to get down this cost per part to only a couple dozen dollars on average, which is really exciting. And I'm really happy to say, and I know it's taken a long time for us to get here, but the Fuse 1 full price pre-orders are being fulfilled as we speak in North America. And I know that there are a lot of people who are still waiting, so thank you for your patience again. Next up, we're going to be starting to ship out in Europe as well. We have a different SKU specifically aimed at the 220, 230 volt network there. And we're going to be getting both fuse 1s and fuse SIFTs out. And it's a really important point for our customers and for the company. So bear with us. This is very exciting. But moving on, I really wanted to talk about something completely new that we never talked about before. We're introducing 2 new materials today here at the User Summit. It's something that we haven't done before, so let's jump in. First of all, materials for us, especially in SLA, is a central part of our strategy. We are always think about making a new material that allows us to get into a new application, that allows us to get into a new industry. And over time, we have worked on a ton of new materials. You can see some of them here. And material science is a very interesting endeavor. One of the things that we are looking at is tensile modulus. Tensile modulus is really how rigid is your material, how stiff it is. The higher the tensile modulus, the more stiff the material is. So you can see some of the common commercial thermoplastics here on the top part of the slide, ranging on the low end from things like HDPE or polypropylene, all the way up to PEEK and some of the more filled products on the top. And on the bottom, you can see some of the Formlabs materials ranging from the lower end, durable, much more pliable and flexible material, to rigid 4000, which you probably know as rigid material, and on the higher end at 4 gigapascals. I want to introduce a new material today called Rigid 10K, and you guessed it, it has a tensile modulus of 10,000 gigapascals. So we are thinking about Rigid 10K as an extreme material for extreme applications. It has a 10 GPa tensile modulus, better accuracy than the previous Rigid that you all know and love, has less warp, less creep, and has a higher HDT for more demanding applications. We took this number from 88 Celsius to 163 Celsius. And you might have heard, and from service bureaus, you might have bought some of these more exotic materials like Somos Preform or Accurate Bluestone. These are materials that are meant to be printed on much more expensive, hundreds of thousands of dollars, $50,000 and up printers. And they usually start from $500 per liter, but again, most of you have had only access to these materials through service bureaus. Today, we are announcing this material with very similar or better capabilities at only $299, and ships today will be available from our rep store or from our partners or from your reps. And we think that there are a lot of really interesting applications that this can be good at. One of them is short-run injection molding. A lot of times when you are working on a new product, a new application, you want to go from prototyping to production, but you kind of need a stepping stone in between. With Rigid 10K, you will have the ability to print out molds that then can be used in handheld injection molding machines or industrial injection molding machines to either get to production faster or prototype your production setup, which is really exciting. The other one is aerospace. And I want to mention here Form 3L as well, because we're very excited about delivering a larger size and more capable materials to really get into some of the applications and industries that our previous materials and printers have not been able to get us to. And I'm talking to you, anybody who is in an automotive or an aerospace company. I think finally we have what you need to get your job done. The second material that I want to announce is a second version of our draft resin. And all of you who were in love with the blue color from before, I have sad news for you. We changed it to a gray one, but this time I think it's gonna fit into the color scheme of probably your other prototyping a little bit better. This is a very exciting material because it's the fastest material that we've ever delivered. It's 30% faster than our draft materials and significantly faster than some of the other standard materials that we've had. And it has a smaller layer height, so it has a smoother surface finish than our previous draft material. And here you can see some of the print times. I also want to talk a little bit about draft resin specifically for the dental industry. We've heard you. We know that one of the places where we have been a little bit slower, literally and figuratively both, getting to a speed, You are small businesses a lot of times that want to get as much productivity done from your printers as possible. You want to turn around patients as quickly as possible. And with the new draft material, you can get there. If you look at the table below, you can see two applications, single arches and 7 arches printed together. We have specifically optimized this material so you can make your aligners even faster. You're able to go from what on some competitors would be 20-30 minutes. Over a single arch, you can get it done in 16 minutes, and we've optimized the post-processing of washing and curing so you can get the whole job done in 31 minutes. Same thing for 7 arches. Competitors get there in about 35 minutes for printing and almost an hour and a half to get it done from end to finish. We can do it now in 47 minutes on printing and around an hour for the entire process. And this is important because we're not compromising on accuracy. We have been working together with beta testers and our materials team, and when printed at 200 microns, 97% of the surfaces are still within the 100 micron of the actual scans, which will enable you to continue to producing high value, high accuracy aligners. And to finish up, I wanted to make one more announcement about our permanent crown resin, which is going to be shipping starting today. And I know you've been waiting for this as well. It's a huge change. Digital dentistry is changing extremely fast, and we're very excited to kind of be part of the revolution, taking dentistry from what it was, a more analog and kind of more based on skill level workflow to a much more digital and kind of reproducible art. So really excited about all of these new materials. Thank you again if you've used our materials and our printers before. If you're here for the first time, I hope that some of this will help you kind of get into our ecosystem a little bit faster. And I will hand it off to Luke Winston, who's going to tell you a little bit about our Impact Award. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be. You know, I've been with Formlabs for a little over 8 years at this point, so I've seen quite a bit of the roller coaster. And I also have to say that these user summits are amongst my favorite events and favorite experiences over the years. And I wish I could see a lot of you in person again. I wish I could meet a lot of you in person. But I guess the silver lining of the way we're doing this time is we're able to do it at a scope and a scale that we've actually never been able to do before. There's literally thousands of people calling in from around the globe to have amazing discussions to advance our thinking. And it's in that context that I'm really excited to continue a conversation that we've kind of always had at Formlabs, but we've been having more explicitly over the past couple of years, and we've been having more publicly, starting with last year at our user summit, and that's impact. That's the impact of our company, that's the impact of our products, and that's the impact of you, our users. And I'd say, you know, in this day and age, or you know, maybe that's actually just too broad of a term. I'd say the right here and now in 2020, with what's going on in the world, with this giant global crisis, which is locking down cities and pulling people out of these streets, like in Times Square, like you see here, or major social justice movements where people are pouring into streets to actually talk about inequities in the world. The topic of impact is just so much more important, so much more urgent, and honestly just so much more visceral than I think it's ever been before for us at Formlabs. And with that, I really love this quote from one of our board members. That's why I share it a lot. It's from Carl Bass. He's the former CEO of Autodesk. And he wrote this in a letter to Autodesk. And he said, "In my mind, great companies are defined first and foremost by their financial performance. Good companies are defined by their values and culture and how they treat their employees, their customers, and the communities in which they do business. And important companies make a real difference in the world." And I just love that quote, and it takes me back to our founding principles behind Formlabs and our founding principles behind Impact. And our philosophy behind Impact is actually pretty simple. We actually built this company around this, and it's the idea that you provide access to powerful technology, you get it in people's hands, you change what they can do, and that's how you actually impact the world. And I'll be the first to admit that we're not the first ones with this idea. We actually were inspired by a lot of different companies that came before us. And one of the most salient examples we like talking about is the computing industry, where you take expensive but powerful and hard to use mainframes, you continuously make that technology even more powerful, you lower the price, you make it easier to use, you get it in more people's hands, you change what they can do, and that's how you change the world. And so you rewind back to 2012, and we were inspired by printers like this one, industrial 3D printers. So this here is a 3D Systems Viper. It's one of the early stereolithography machines. And it was amazing. I mean, it has amazing output. It's a stereolithography machine. It's industrial grade. But it has a couple things wrong with it. One, it costs $300,000. And then two, it's actually relatively difficult to use, so it requires a decent amount of training. So the crazy idea the founding team of Formlabs had was, what if we can make a 3D printer that's just as powerful as this machine, so people actually want to use it? What if we make it easy to use so people actually can use it? And then here's the kicker, what if we make it 1% of the cost so people actually can use it? And then of course, fast forward just like a little bit, and we told the world about this on Kickstarter. And this is actually the entire Formlabs team at the time. It's not that big of a team. And the reason we're all running around high-fiving, have a bit of euphoria is actually just because we had launched on Kickstarter. This is about 2.5 hours in. We had hit our goal, and we still had 30 more days to go. And we've got all this euphoria going on. We're high-fiving because, well, honestly, it's really fun to have that kind of success online. But it's also because of our aspirations. We were so excited that we talked about this crazy idea, and a lot of people answered and said, yes, that's a great crazy idea. And we all had aspirations to build a big company. We all had aspirations to disrupt the 3D printing industry. But really what we had was aspirations to impact the world by getting more access to the technology that we were excited about. But it takes more than just talking about it on Kickstarter to make that dream a reality. And that's why it's exciting to fast forward to 2019 through multiple product generations where you actually get to the Form 3. And I'd say we accomplished that dream. And it's pretty amazing what you can do with this. It's easy to use, but it's powerful, and it is affordable. But then you fast forward into 2020, and honestly, I think this has been going on for a couple of years at this point. But because we changed the rules of the game, we changed how people actually think about what an industrial 3D printer is, what an industrial 3D printer looks like, how big an industrial 3D printer can actually get, and what it should do. And when you change the rules of the game like that, you get numbers like what Max shared just a little while ago. 70,000 professional grade 3D printers shipped out into the world that people can use and do amazing things with. And I'd actually argue because a lot of those printers are actually in environments where they're actually shared, so that number of people actually using these machines is actually multiple times bigger than that 70,000. And because we changed the game, you get access to this technology. But I think what's particularly interesting, or what's particularly salient in 2020, is that you provide access to technology, and then you build this community around it. And this is something we've believed since the beginning of Formlabs. I mean, we launched on Kickstarter, right? But in 2020, just the idea that you have access to this technology and you build this powerful user community, everybody on this call, everybody attending, amazing things can happen. And I think, just like in 2020, at the beginning of this COVID crisis, I bet a lot of you actually felt like I did. First, just like a lot of anxiety, also a certain amount of fear, but then this like overwhelming desire to be able to do something, to be able to respond to this crisis, to be able to just, make an impact on your community. But I think the early question was, well, what can we do? And so at the beginning of this crisis, it was kind of interesting because there was this little trickle of people starting to raise their hands and say, well, I've got a 3D printer, we can print face shields. Another person said, I've got a 3D printer, we can print test swabs. Someone else said, I've got a 3D printer, we can print BiPAP adapters to actually expand our ventilation capacity and respond to this crisis. And so just, that trickle turned into a flood, and our COVID response team organized a global network of volunteers of more than 3,000 people across more than 100 countries, and just had this amazing impact on so many different scales with so many different applications. And honestly, I've never been so proud to be part of this team, part of this company, part of this community. And so it's in the context of all of these amazing efforts in 2020, amidst this huge crisis, that I'm excited to present the Formlabs Impact Award. And so this will be the second time we're presenting the Formlabs Impact Award. And it is for a user who has adopted Formlabs tools to fundamentally and positively impact their own or someone else's life in a way that was out of reach before gaining access to this technology. And after everything I just told you about all the amazing people doing amazing things to impact their communities, you can imagine how hard this selection process actually was. But at the end of the day, we have to have a winner, and actually we have several winners. And so I'm excited to present the Formlabs Impact Award to Summer Decker and Jonathan Ford of USF, as well as Todd Goldstein of Northwell Health. And before I give them a chance to speak and tell you about their story and accept the award, I just want to kind of really reinforce that point of access plus community. So what's actually really interesting about their story and that led on to them designing test swabs is that actually last year at the user summit, they met, they crossed paths, they actually had an amazing conversation around the food trucks apparently, where they thought each other's work was really, really interesting. They said, we should work on something in the future. I don't know what, but we should work on something in the future. And actually Todd was on a panel that I hosted called Scaling Impact, and I think he thought, why just talk on a panel? Why not actually go do something that just has this huge global impact, like producing test swabs with 3D printers? And so the one day at the beginning of the crisis, Summer sends out an email saying, I have this idea. Is someone else interested in collaborating on 3D printing test swabs? And Todd was the person that responded, and the rest is history. And so obviously, it scaled to this amazing, amazing impact of producing tens of millions of swabs around the world. And so I just want to say congratulations, Summer, Jonathan, and Todd. And without further ado, here they are.
Dr. Summer Decker, and I'm at the University of South Florida Department of Radiology, and I'm the Director of 3D Clinical Applications here. And I'm the team leader at USF Health for the 3D printed nasal pharyngeal swab. We'd first like to thank Formlabs for this huge honor. We were so surprised, and we're very grateful for that as our entire team. This whole project came together when we heard in our hospital about supply chain shortages that were coming up with PPE and critical medical supplies like the 3D nasal swab here. Immediately, our thought was how we could address that using 3D printing. And in order to do that, we reached out to our colleagues across the country who are medical printers. And our first call was to Dr. Todd Goldstein, our colleague on here. So we couldn't be more happy to accept this as a team with him. Our team with Dr. Jonathan Ford here, we would like to thank the Department of Radiology, our chairman, Dr. Todd Hazelton, and Kyle Tutoris, who worked with us on this every single day when we were here for the many, many hours. We'd like our colleagues that worked with us on the bench lab testing and clinical trial testing component of this swab, Dr. Kami Kim and Michael Tang, and our colleagues in the emergency department, Dr. Jason Wilson, who allowed us to test and made sure that we had these tools in their hands. Our clinical trial represented a number of sites, and Northwell Health is one of those sites. So we are so grateful to all of the people that joined us on this clinical trial, including also Jefferson Health and a number of the other hospitals. Our entire team here at TGH at Tampa General Hospital that helped us be able to set all of this up. We'd also like to thank our dean who brought this idea to us, Dr. Charles Lockwood. And Dr. Ford would like to thank.
I thank special people from Formlabs. You guys were very receptive and would answer our questions anytime we had. So a couple of people, I'm not going to include everybody, but David Lacos was super helpful in this, Kyle Babbitt, Amalie Garabachanda, all of them were more than helpful in making sure this was a successful operation. So thank you guys so much.
This swab to us represents the efforts of a lot of people's work. And so we are so grateful to how the community came together and worked together to be able to make this possible. And now that we have tens of millions of them around the world in 25 different countries, we're just grateful to see that we were able to help using 3D printing. And finally, we would like to thank our family and friends who who we all were away from during this process. It's been hard on everybody, but we are really grateful to receive such an honor and recognition of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I would also like to take the time to thank the remaining people over at Northwell who assisted in this trial. We had, as everyone's well aware, the New England area, especially New York, was the lovely people that got this the largest amount of infections very early on, and we kind of had to think outside the box as we were trying to deal with all of the clinical issues that we're having. Who could we work with that maybe didn't have as much of a load as New York? You know, we were seeing thousands of cases, and I believe at that time USF maybe had 1 or 2. So it was a great way for us to not only work on a project that had an immediate clinical application, but it was great for us to target industry and then also work with, you know, Summer and Jonathan to get this project off the ground, where we had, you know, benchtop testing being done in Florida, sending the file up to us printing it, and then immediately going into the clinic as we were facing severe supply chain issues. So I would like to thank not only the local team here at Northwell and Core Labs, which was run by Dr. Dwayne Brining and Dr. Greg Berry, but also all of my staff, Allison and Sean, for assisting in the long hours for printing out all of these swabs, and also just, you know, the long hours that we had to put in to get this started, because unfortunately for us, we were first in this long match of whack-a-mole that's been happening with outbreaks of COVID all over the country. And without having not only industry, but also, you know, collaborators that we can count on to get this thing, this project wouldn't have gotten off the ground so effectively and so rapidly. So for me, it's been an honor to work on this project, and I'm so grateful for being recognized in this capacity through Formlabs. And it's been certainly one heck of a run, and I know we're not out of the woods yet, but at least we know that we have all the groundwork laid out, whereas our next challenge we can definitely conquer together.
Congratulations again, Summer, Jonathan, and Todd. Truly an inspirational story. I do just want to reinforce this point of, you know, combining access to technology as well as community. But the other idea that this story just reinforces for me personally is when you have both of these, but you also have intention around solving a big world problem. And so, you know, at Formlabs, what we want to do is continue to be more intentional about the different problems we solve, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in education, or whether it's providing more access to 3D printing, because at the end of the day, there are more barriers than just price and usability to providing access to 3D printing. And so we want to work with people from underrepresented backgrounds so that they can actually have access to this amazing technology. And we'll be talking a lot more about that in the future. But I asked this community, like, what world problems do you want to solve? What do you want to be intentional about? And go start some amazing conversations and find some collaborators. And congratulations again to the USF and Northwell teams.
All right, thank you, Luke. And again, congratulations to the teams from USF and Northwell Health. Truly an inspiring story. Before we break now, we have a small break right now, but before we break, I want to point out a couple last things. The first is that if you go to your home screen of the event experience, you will see on the left-hand side product booths. If you click on the product booths area, what you will be able to do is go in and look at individual booths for the different products, for each of the products, and there'll be a specialist there who can answer questions for you. You can have a live chat and a live interaction with them. So I encourage you to go to the product booths. Now, before I leave you for our break, I want to ask a question. We all have seen what Formlabs materials look like. You may have smelled what Formlabs materials look like. You've felt what they look like. But do you imagine what Formlabs materials sound like? To help answer that question, I want to turn to one of our customers, a gentleman by the name of Jay Loomis, who is at Brown University, who is going to play for us what do Formlabs materials sound like.
If you've ever wondered what the draft resin sounds like, here you have it. So I've been making flutes for about 15 years, and I'm always fascinated with how different materials add to the sound, how a material of a flute can change the personality of the sound that comes out of it. These pan flutes that I 3D printed recently on the Form 3 are mostly inspired by this Ecuadorian pan flute called the rondador, and this one sounds like this. So this is a reed. It's a river cane reed. So it's made out of wood. How about a flexible resin? What does that sound like? This is flexible 80A, so you can squeeze it and change its shape. I just printed this one, and I still need to tune it more precisely, but at least you can get an idea of what it sounds like. So one thing I noticed about this flute, which I love, is that it's really easy to overblow into a higher octave. So usually it's hard to get that really high note. But for some reason, and I think it probably has something to do with the material, the flexible material. It could also be a combination with how I designed the embouchure. It actually allows me to get those high notes more easily, which I'm looking forward to experimenting with once I tune it more precisely. Another thing that I've done is combine this. This is a rigid resin that I've combined with the flexible 80A, and I really like how that looks. And I don't know if you can really see, but I've also put a surface decoration on there, which is a lithic projectile point stone tool that I got just from Sketchfab, free downloads. So, and then I just in Fusion 360 stuck it on there. So that's a little bit of my experimentation with Formlabs resins in the pan flute making process. Thank you.